Evening, everybody. The date is June 30th, 2025, and the time is 6 p.m. I hereby call to order the special meeting of the City Council of City of Groveland, Florida. Jenny, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Mayor.
Here.
Vice Mayor Barbara Gaines. Here. Councilmember Amy Jo Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Judith Fike. Here. Councilmember Mike Radzik.
Here.
City Manager Mike Hine absent. Acting City Manager Tim Maslow.
Here.
City Attorney Anita Gerasi Carver. Here. Sergeant at Arms Chief Sean Ramsey. City Clerk Virginia Wright here.
Thank you, and we have a quorum. Prior to getting started, I'd like to start out by addressing the article in the Claremont Sun. It's not on the agenda tonight. I'm saying this for everybody's benefit. It's not on the agenda tonight, and not in this meeting where we take any comments on that. I would ask, however, for a consensus from the council to put it on the next agenda, July 7th, to discuss. I have consensus?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So I guess I'll say yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the next order of business would be Agenda Item 1, discussion and direction of city charter ballot measures. Ms. Anita?
Thank you. So previously, the council had acknowledged receipt of the report from the Charter Advisory Committee. They considered and proposed 11 ballot amendments that were included in the report, and they thought it proper to go ahead and submit all of those to the council for your consideration. They did rank them in order of what they felt was most important to move forward, and there was a pretty big split, a distance between the ballot measures and overwhelming support for the 4-year terms with term limits. So that was the highest ranking from the committee, but there are 11 measures, and we're just looking for some direction from council as to whether or not you would like to place any of them on the November 2025 ballot, and if so, which ones or all of them, because we have some deadlines we need to meet with the Supervisor of Elections office in order to get those processed. They do take 2 readings in front of this council. We have to have them translated into Spanish and then sent to the Supervisor of Elections office by mid-August. So, looking for your feedback, and I think the report is in front of you. If you have any questions about any of the proposed amendments, I know there's members of the Charter Review Committee here this evening, or I'm happy to answer any questions that you have as well.
Okay, so then should we go down item 1, item 2, and just see if there's any questions? Change on, do you need to read this, Jenny, the changes or record? On section 1.0, involvement would be the first item. This has a change, I believe.
Are you looking at the ranking order? Oh, you're looking at the proposed
The actual
language?
document.
Okay.
I think once we understand what that is, then
Okay.
we can go back and look at the ranking and discuss it from that. But just if there's any
Okay.
discussion needed for this wording or,
I'm happy to read those for you.
okay,
So the first one would be a new section, 1.02, citizen involvement, and it states that people of Groveland establish this charter for the welfare of our community and the guidance of our local government. The City of Groveland shall treat public engagement as an integral part of effective and trusted governance and not just as an occasional process of activity. The active, informed, inclusive, and equitable engagement of community members, both individually and collectively, is an essential element of healthy civic life and a thriving local democracy. So that would be a new section to your charter.
okay. Is there any question on item 1.02? Amy Jo?
I don't have any questions on that one. I do think it would be a good addition to our charter to have sections about citizen involvement specifically. And I think it's pretty straightforward, so.
Ms. Fight?
Fourth, I think, a citizens review committee for several things, and it embraces exactly what we're talking about in this paragraph.
Radzic?
In the grand scheme of things, I think it's absolutely important. I think that we've done a lot to accentuate it. We talked just the other day about a train depot committee. You know, the P&Z committee is somewhat new through the years. We've got the charter review committee. We got the recreation advisory committee. And any committee that the council wants to establish for the sake of getting some independent thoughts. So I think it's important. I just don't know where it fits into a ballot question by way of importance right now.
Okay.
I have no comment about it.
Okay. My only comment would be, is this more of a preamble to what the charter is versus a section?
Well, there is a preamble already in your charter. I think in looking at the charter, it seemed to fit under the Article 1, but if it's something you would rather see in the preamble and added to that, certainly I can word it that way.
Say that.
Mayor, is this an amendment, or is this something that we can actually do because it's already sitting in the preamble? Can we just amplify it through an ordinance or otherwise?
No.
Resolution?
Because the preamble is part of the charter and only can be amended through a vote of the people.
So what about a resolution with regards to 1.02?
I mean, you could adopt this as a resolution, you could adopt it as an ordinance and it become part of your code, but if you want it in the charter, then it would have to be a vote of the people.
Maybe we can keep that open for some discussion.
I think we'll come back. I just
Yeah.
wrote my note right there.
Got a note on that as well.
I think it's great. I think it'd be good in the charter. However, I do think that we don't want to overwhelm people. Could maybe put it on next year's ballot instead of this year's ballot. Like, are we able to spread them out
Yes.
over 2 years? Perfect. Okay, thank you.
I think when we get done with understanding it, we're going to go back. Figure that out.
Okay.
Ms. Fike, did you have something?
A full city availability to vote. This would only be voted on by District 2 and District 4 this year. Am I correct? If it went on?
No, it's the whole city votes. We have county elections, we have.
Okay, all
we have the
right.
charter
My
for
misunderstanding
county,
on
yeah.
that. So just wanted to double check.
Yeah, no, it's the whole city coming out. Okay, moving on to the next change.
So this is a change to section 3.03, and this is where you'll see a lot of the language relating to term limits. And I'm just going to read the paragraphs that have changes in the new section. So it'll say, commencing with the November 2026 election and subsequent elections, council members shall be elected to 4-year terms, except as otherwise provided herein. 3 council members shall be elected at the 2026 general election and every 4 years thereafter. The council members shall be qualified and entered upon the ballot as districts 1, 3, and 5. Of these districts, District 1 shall be the seat reserved for the mayoral candidate, and the person elected to District 1 shall serve as mayor. He or she shall be a member of the council and will preside over meetings of the council. There shall be elected at the 2027 general election 2 council members, and candidates for such offices shall be designated as candidates from Districts 2 and 4 and shall be elected for a 1-year term. However, at the 2028 general election and every 4 years thereafter, the term of office for Districts 2 and 4 shall be 4 years. Each candidate for city council may qualify in 1 district only. All council members, including the mayor, shall be elected to begin office at the first regular city council meeting following their election. No person may serve more than 2 terms on council, except a person may serve 2 terms in the position of mayor and an additional 2 terms as a council member. For term limits, the election or appointment of a person to fill a vacancy in the council shall be included as 1 term in determining the number of terms that such person has served if the person fills the vacancy for more than 50% of the term. Service of a term which commenced before November 4th, 2025 will not be counted toward the limitation imposed in this section.
That whole thing is going on the ballot?
Yes, that would be the change. So what it does is it gets us to 4-year terms. And the purpose in that, the committee felt it was important to try and get your elections so they run when the county elections are and the state elections, so you're not paying, for the elections. And they also felt as though if they imposed term limits with that, there would be a better chance of getting the people to accept the 4-year terms because they were limiting the number of terms somebody could serve.
And it's legal for us to put those two together?
Yes.
Because that's 2 separate things.
So the question, let me find the question. So one question would be, shall the charter be amended to impose term limits of 2 terms as mayor and 2 terms as council member while increasing terms of office from 2 years to 4 years, and a one-time interim 1-year term for council members elected in 2027 to districts 2 and 4. And then it states, election or appointment to fill a vacancy shall be included as 1 term if the person fills the vacancy for more than 50% of the term.
And I'm gonna yield to Councilman Radzik because he has the history, but I think I remember that we didn't get this passed before because we made it too complicated as we asked the voters.
So through the years, we've tried to increase the terms. We tried to go for 3-year terms. We tried to go to 4-year terms. We put in language for term limits, and it's never really gathered any type of excitement. Now, first off, the way that this one is written, and of course, I'm going to sit there and say it's not fair to me if I'm still around in 2027 because it's a 1-year term, and it could just as easily been flipped if we say, well, it'll be 1, 3, and 5. But with all that said, I think term limits are important, and we haven't had it in the past because we haven't had the population that we have or the interest. I would be more in favor of splitting that out and looking at term limits this year and then going back and getting whether it be 2, 3, or 4 after that, because we're not going to get it. I shouldn't say that. The chances of getting it through the way that is written is probably not the best.
Thank you. Further comment, Amy Jo?
I don't think if you split it up, you can get it through either. I don't think you can have one without the other. I mean, if you put term limits in as is, then you're switching entire city councils every 4 years, which doesn't, I don't know, I'm 7 months in and just starting to figure out what's going on. I mean, I know it's going on, but all the rules, there's a lot of rules, you guys. There's a lot to learn and a lot to gather with this, so it feels like a high turnover rate to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. If you're going 4 years and people are completely done and can't participate anymore. So
There's like a cliff note thing at the top that says this means 4-year term or something, or they have to, and in the booth, read that whole thing and try to figure it out.
No, so in the booth, what they're going to be asked is the question I read. So, let me get back to it. So it'll have this title, Term Limits with 4-Year Terms of Office for Council Members and Mayor. That's the heading. And then it'll have the question, shall the charter be amended to impose term limits of 2 terms as mayor and 2 terms as council member, while increasing terms of office from 2 years to 4 years, and a one-time interim 1-year term for council members elected in 2027 to districts 2 and 4. Election or appointment to fill a vacancy shall be included as 1 term if the person fills the vacancy for more than 50% of the term. So
Okay,
that's what they
that's
would
much
see.
better. Okay, that makes more sense, I think, yeah. Ms. Fike?
So I just, for clarity's sake, so in the 2027 election, then districts 2 and 4 will be elected for 1 year only to do the catch-up to go to 4.
Correct, because it's either a 1-year term or a 5-year term, and 5 years is a long time, and the committee didn't feel that that was appropriate.
Okay, and then my other, just for clarity here, if I'm doing my math correctly, so a person may serve 2 terms in the position of mayor and an additional 2 terms as a council member. So 2 terms, that would be 8 years as mayor and another 8 years as council member. So they would in fact have 16 years in total. Just doing the math on that, just trying to wrap my head around that full scope of that. So statement, not a question.
That is how it would read.
Yeah, I was commenting on Brad's idea to just put term limits in by themselves without the increasing the term itself. That's what I meant, just for clarity.
The first part of it is simplistic, but then it's like the ever-ready bunny. It just keeps going on and on and on and on. Is there any way to further simplify after that first sentence? Because I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and if I were out there and it were time for me to vote, I'd be doing like this. What is there any way to simplify what it is that we are trying to do?
I mean, you could have a separate question for what constitutes a term, so that you can get rid of the language about if you've been appointed or have served more than 50% of a term, then it's counted as a term towards the term limit requirement. That could be separated. But if you want to ensure that your term limits and your 4-year terms are in one question, it's really hard to simplify it more than that.
Thank you.
So years ago, when we looked at 4-year terms, one of the arguments was, well, I'm going to be stuck with someone for 4 years, and, how are we going to get rid of them, a recall or whatever. So that was one of the reasons that it didn't really kind of go forward. Then I'll ask, and I understand part of this is monetary. I understand that we're spending $45,000 or whatever the case may be. So Congress only serves 2-year terms. The House of Rep, right? Senators serve 6. To me, there's no greater, body than the House of Representatives. So why do I need to go to 4? But if we're going to go that way, we really need to split this up. And I think we need to split up exactly what a term means and otherwise, because maybe that's what's failed this in the past, was that it got too wordy. And I know that back a couple years ago, we were going to rely on, what was the name of your group? I forgot the name of it. They were going to go out and they were going to, try to, have some meetings to discuss what all these went. I don't know if it happened or not, but evidently it didn't succeed. So
The last time it was on the ballot, I think the question was simply, do you want to amend the charter to increase terms from 2 years to 3 years? But it did not. And I think that's been on the ballot at least twice, and it's failed each time.
I remember that. We didn't go out and do a lot on that because we wanted to have it going in conjunction with major elections so that we don't have off years. That was the big thing about 3-year terms. But, okay, I think the input is just, can we simplify it more? I can understand putting them together. I never thought you could have two things under one.
Well, they're tied together because that's the incentive for the 4-year term is to make sure there's a term limit.
Understood.
So I think it can be joined, but we can take out the language about what constitutes a term and make that separate.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, right? Okay.
The next is a modification of section 3.06, vacancies, forfeiture of office, filling of vacancies. And this would be to add, a vacancy in the council shall be filled for the remainder of the unexpired term, if any, at the next regular election of the city for which a candidate may qualify during the city's qualification period, regardless of the political district to be filled. But the council, by a majority of vote of all its remaining members, shall appoint a qualified person to fill the vacancy until the person elected to serve the remainder of the unexpired term takes office. And this was, rather than being appointed to serve for the remainder of that entire term, if there's a general election coming up, they, even if it wasn't, say it was District 2, and it wasn't time for District 2 to be on the ballot, if they could qualify in time for that election, then it would go on the ballot.
Again, just, I don't have an issue with the language per se, but it to me, and reading it, it gets kind of a little wordy. I think is there a better way to clarify it? The governor, it says, in an extraordinary vacancy. I don't know, how that would happen. But then it says the governor shall appoint. I understand that, but I'm not sure that if somebody reading it goes, wait, what? We're not having an election here. Is there a way to clarify that a little bit more and drill that down? And if not, I understand, but it just, for a little more clarity.
So keep in mind that this is what the charter would end up reading if the ballot measure got approved. That's not what's going on the ballot.
Okay.
So what's going on the ballot would be filling vacancy prior to expiration of term of office. Should the charter be amended to provide that a vacant seat on city council, except upon natural expiration of a term of office, shall be filled at the next regular election for which a candidate may qualify during the city's election period, regardless of political district to be filled, but initially filled by council appointment until the person elected to serve takes office. So it's condensed.
So the governor language is out of there, Anita?
No, that's in section 3.06E, which is the next. This is just a change to D.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this all came about because of primaries and single-member voting districts and cost. So Ms. Fike, she basically got appointed right after Skaczynski in October. And of course, that was too late to do anything on the November election, and it wasn't an election year anyway. It would have been a year after that. So what happens in the case of that again? If someone left in September and October and we appointed them, and then the next year it's not an election year for them.
If there's sufficient time for them to qualify, which is typically June,
Okay.
then they would be on the ballot for the following year, regardless of whether or not it's their seat that should be up for election that year.
So we're still going to put it on the ballot, and it could be 1, 3, and 5, and it could literally be 1, 2, 3, and 5,
Correct.
which then leaves 1 year for that newly elected person to sit and before needing. I don't care.
So I'm kind of going to say that I think this one should be moved to the next ballot, like not this year, but the following year to see if the 4-year terms pass. Because if 4-year terms doesn't pass, I don't think this is applicable. because that's kind of what we do now anyway.
Yeah, that's a good
But-
point.
If 4-year terms passed, then this would be the next step. So maybe we set this one aside until next year and it goes on next year's ballot.
Madam Vice Mayor?
I agree with Amy Jo.
Yeah, I'll build on that a little bit, but I'll say 2 or 4, it doesn't matter to me. If somebody leaves in the first 6 months of their term, and they could we should have an election so the people's voice should be heard. And that's just my personal opinion. But what I would ask if it would be legal to somehow put a stipulation in there that the appointee, the interim person, is not going to run for that seat. What I'm trying to get to is sometimes I'm not saying it's done here, but in some jurisdictions, people would ask people to resign early so that they could put somebody in so they could then run for the next election. And I think that would be that's not what this intent is to be. You want an interim for a very short period of time, and then you want the people to go ahead and vote. And I wouldn't mind saying, whoever the past person, we figure that out later, but I just think to keep any mischief from happening, we should put in that that appointee, that interim person should not be running for that office.
We can add that. I mean, that's up to the council.
That's up for discussion.
Constitutional, based
I would look into it, but, I mean, I'll take your direction and make sure.
Sure. Okay, let's moving on.
The next one is a change to subsection E in section 3-06. And this is just to align the 2 and 4 year language. It's not a new change. It's just if you do the 4-year terms and you have the term limits, then this needed to be changed to be consistent with that. So it's not a separate question. And the next one after that is in procedure. It would be a new subsection E to section 3.07. And it reads, contracts, no contracts, agreements, or financial commitments shall be approved, executed, or renewed by the city council, mayor, or any authorized city official during the period between a municipal election and the official investiture of newly elected officials. Exceptions may be made for emergency expenditures necessary for the continued operation of essential city services, subject to approval by the appropriate authority established by the city council. So this was to avoid any expenditures or contracts being entered from the date of the election until the new council is seated.
here between the municipal election. What does that mean?
So this year, election is November 4th. So you would not, if this were approved and in effect for this year, then from November 4th until when the newly sworn council takes office, which is your second meeting in November, the council could, and city manager or anybody with spending authority could not enter into any new contracts or amendments.
I don't have a problem with that, other than I would add between date of the municipal election or something that specifies that it is as of November the 6th or whatever the case may be, because.
Well, we can't though, because that date changes. It's just your municipal election, which is always in
Well, how about just the current
November.
municipal date, current municipal election date? Instead of saying,
I could change it to say between the date of a municipal election.
specificity, because that's kind of vague.
Right?
I think it makes good sense. I'm just laughing about the sidebar up here. I have no issues with it.
I have no issues with that one.
Fine.
Oh my, thank you. Next.
3.07, it's a new subsection E, reconsideration of ordinances and resolutions. And it states, "The registered voters of the city shall have the power to require reconsideration by the city council of any adopted ordinance or resolution, and if the council fails to repeal an ordinance or resolution so reconsidered, to approve or reject it at a city election, but such power shall not extend to the budget, levy of taxes, or ordinances pertaining to comprehensive planning or zoning." So you currently have a code provision that allows the public to ask the council to reconsider an ordinance, but it doesn't apply to resolutions. The committee wanted it to apply to resolutions as well, but they also wanted it included in the charter and not just your code. So, new one, but we did need to provide for some exceptions that are statutory, which is adoption of your budget, levying of taxes, and then comp plan and zoning ordinances.
Okay. Ms. Veit?
Just curiosity, most of the council's work is done through resolutions. If we have resolutions, and petition drives are constantly brought in, I'm curious how that upsets and dictates the work that the council tries to do. It's a constant back and forth, and I'm sure that it benefits the city in that regard.
So if I'm putting this on the ballot, what is it going to read, and what is a voter going to know what the difference is between an ordinance and a resolution?
The question, the title of the ballot would be Citizen Authority to Require Reconsideration of Certain Ordinances and Resolutions. And the question would be, should the charter be amended to provide that the registered voters of the city have the power to require council reconsideration of certain adopted ordinances or adopted resolutions, and if the council fails to repeal an ordinance or resolution so reconsidered, then the measure be approved or rejected by the registered voters at a city election?
So I see two things. Number one, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Drossy Carver, a resolution is an expression of a current body.
It's that, and it's also utilized to adopt agreements,
Okay.
contracts.
And the biggest resolution is usually a DA.
Yes, approval of a development agreement or approval of a contract.
Okay. So, again, getting someone to understand what the difference is between the two, and it's also, again, it's the council who is actually taking this action, and it's no different, in my opinion, than the president being able to veto something, or, the governor being able to veto something. I think that the ability for our residents to question it is always there, and there's nothing that stops a resident from getting up to the microphone asking it for it to be recalled, so long as it's done so with factual information, and, it's not done, maliciously. But to me, in the grand scheme of thing, you want to put it on the ballot. Again, I don't know how much traction it gets, because people are not going to know what an ordinance or a resolution is. And again, is it something we want to do this year or next year? So.
Carol?
Does it specify what the path to them recalling it is?
That would be up to council to adopt an ordinance with those procedures.
Okay. I think it's important for our citizens to have that power. I think it's necessary. It keeps everybody accountable to each other. It's like checks and balances.
Vice Mayor?
I think that it needs to be there. My only question is, how do you educate the public when they go to vote for this? How do I really know what I'm voting for? I need to be educated, and so not knowing, it could go either way with me. So I would like to know how or what we can do to educate the public.
Yeah, I think that'll be up to each individual council member. The city really can't take any action to educate the public. But individual city council members, the charter review committee members, and just the general public.
You clarify that for me? Does that mean the huddles couldn't tackle this? So that would be
No.
off limits? Okay.
Yeah, they changed the statute a few years ago to prohibit the cities from even publishing just the pros and the cons or educating.
Got it.
Sponsored huddle. We can't do that at that point. But Mike Radzik has a meet and greet on my own time.
If it's not a city-sponsored event.
It's not a spade, okay, so there is ways of getting it done, just not with my city shirt on and
Correct.
saying, hi, my name is Mike Radzik, I'm a council member.
Correct.
Okay.
So just to build. Be a time stipulation, within 90 days or something of a decisions, because you could end up going back and redoing things for the past 20 years, and that would really clog us up. Should there not be the citizens have the right to petition within a certain period of time in order to come back of a decision being made?
You could put the time limit here, or you could put it in the ordinance with all the procedures as to how they go about doing it. That's up to you.
Okay, so if I put in the procedures, then we could vote to change it at any time.
Correct.
Okay. If we have resolutions and ordinances covered, that means anything we vote on, right? So people don't have to understand one over the other. It's all decisions made by the council could be repealable, right? Okay. And how much of a petition, what's the qualification of the petition coming in? Was it 10% of the voter?
I think that's what your current code says now, but those are all the details. That's something the council would establish by ordinance.
Okay, very good. That's all I have. We can go on to
May I just ask a question on the heels of Mike? Clearly can't be discussed at a huddle, and Mike says, but if I go out and do a meeting on my own, can't wear a city shirt, whatever the case may be. But you are going in, and that discussion you're having would be because you're a council member. So can I get some clarity on that? Because you are going in, talking in your district to your constituents, and the representation of the city follows you everywhere you go. It's like Pigpen and Linus, the dirt doesn't fall off of you.
Yeah, I'm happy to
So-
provide some more information. Let me pull the statute, get the exact language,
Okay.
and then I can issue something
I would
to
appreciate some
council.
clarity on that, because that seems a little fuzzy to me.
Sure. Then the next one is also in procedure. I'm sorry, under procedure 3.07, it's a new subsection E. Contract renewals. Contracts may only be renewed within 6 months of expiration. And this was to avoid contracts that still had, a year or two left on them, and councils extending them when they really weren't up for renewal at that time. So this would only allow council to extend a contract, or city staff, if they're the authority that has spending authority for that level, they can only be renewed within 6 months of expiration.
Hey, Joe?
I don't know why we would have to extend contracts more than 6 months before they would expire. I mean, you could start a bidding process before that if it's something that takes a long time, so that you would be reaching the completion of it about 6 months before it's due to expire. You still have plenty of time to implement it. I don't think we need to go back, it's going to expire in 2 years, we better jump on that. There's no urgency there, so I think that's fine.
RFP, does anybody, can you provide me when we would normally be going out for bid for that? I know it's not 2 years in advance, but when those contracts are coming up for renewal or bid, at what point in time are we kind of pushing that through to get it in to assess them and figure out whether we stay or go? Do we have an idea of the timeline on that it would fall within that 6 months?
Don't know. that would be something administrative staff would have to answer.
Okay, and I thank you for that. Would that then be more of an administrative issue than necessarily a charter issue? I'm not sure. I'm just looking for clarity on when we would start the bid process anyway.
Yeah, I think the spirit of it was so people weren't traveling over to the next administration. So
Understood.
you know, that 2 years left to go, we're going to renew it for 4 more years, and that makes it 6, and it goes through. And I think that the 6 months, that was the spirit, the way I understood it. I attended some of these. That's the way I understood it, is to make sure that we had timing that would coincide with different administrations.
So what I haven't seen yet with regards to contracts is a requirement that they be bid out every 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. Is that anywhere in our current code?
It's not, you do have a procurement policy that sets spending levels and who has authority to approve up to a certain amount. It does set forth the procurement process for contracts. Some of it's statutory, but some of it's in your policies as well.
That's a policy that can be changed very, very easily by the council versus something that would be put into the charter that would not be able to do so.
Yes.
I'm in favor of adding some language to the charter that specifies when contracts should be bid. Now, on the other hand, there has been at least one occasion that I can think of where a contract was renewed or extended, and that was done in lieu of us being sued because of previous city manager doing some nefarious things, including going down to the FDLE and making allegations that were not true. And so instead of basically getting sued, and the money would have came out of our general fund because it was not going to be coverable by insurance, that in lieu of that, it was agreed that the contract would be extended. Now, that doesn't happen every year, and I don't suspect it's ever going to happen again. Better not happen again. But so to me, 2 issues. This is not something that happens all the time. And at the same time, I think we need some specificity as to how often that all contracts are reviewed and put out to bid or otherwise.
Okay, and I think we'll get into a discussion later on what's a policy and procedure versus a charter. But I know of other contracts that were renewed, like in 2023 for all the way through 2023 to 2030, 2020 to 30. So those are, and it wasn't up for renewal at that time. So I think that there's going to have to be discussion on what's policies and procedures, because different, in my opinion, different contracts require a different amount of time to get to the bottom bid. I mean, our wastewater treatment plant, 119 million, is going to take a lot longer than a bid on getting the curb fixed downtown. So I think that we've got to be careful once we go back to the priorities on what we want to put in. I think the next discussion is, for right now, what do we have to put down to change our municipal code until the next time to get around.
The next change is a new subsection, or a new section to the code, 3.10, city attorney, and it would read, there shall be a city attorney appointed by the city council. The city attorney shall be appointed and may be removed by a majority vote of all the city council members. The city attorney shall be a member in good standing of the Florida Bar and preferably is board certified in city, county, local government law. The city attorney shall serve as chief legal advisor to the council, the city manager, and all city departments, offices, and agencies, shall represent the city in legal proceedings, and shall perform any other duties prescribed by state law, by this charter, or by ordinance.
Is that not in there?
I was just going to ask, how is that different?
Right?
Have anything in your charter or code? You have something in your code, I think, that says there will be a city attorney. but you don't have any other language. So the city council has always hired the city attorney. Obviously, you have the authority to fire the city attorney. And the city attorney has always given legal advice to staff and to council, and so.
Okay, questions, Mr. Redzick?
I mean, I'm surprised there wasn't anything in there, because here's a question for you, Anita. The reporting structure, is it literally 2 lines, council and city manager? Or is it, I mean, we hire you, okay? But yet you basically have a responsibility to city manager for, different questions, and then you also, of course, answering us. The city manager can't fire you, only we can.
Correct.
Okay, and that's always been that way, regardless of whether it's in here or not.
Correct.
So I'm not sure why I need something like that in there, although, again, it's not even, is that implied that we've got the ability to do so, or is that explicit someplace?
Well, council is the one who approves my contract or a city attorney contract. So therefore, the city council is the one that has the authority to fire.
Up in the air on that one, it's,
Well, so we hire you, you have a contract to perform X duties. Do we renew that contract? Is it an ongoing contract? How is that handled right now?
The city attorney serves at the pleasure of the council, so you can terminate at any time.
So essentially, it sounds like this is pretty much the same. You get a contract, you serve at the pleasure of the council, and if the council decides that it's no longer feasible, that they can come in and terminate. So I kind of find it a little redundant that since it already seems to be in play with the council.
I think it'd be good to have it in there, just so it's not something that can be easily changed. But I'm not sure that it's urgent, if that makes sense. So again, something we can push to another ballot if we have more pressing matters to get to this time.
I think that it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Good. And also, I don't know that it's implied, because when I look at our org chart, it doesn't have you between us and it doesn't have the council on our org chart. Org chart, it should
I
say.
don't remember what it looks
It should
like.
say citizens, then council, then city manager, and in between there, it should be you. Above city manager and below council.
Well, it should be the same level as the city manager, because we both are hired by you and we both would be fired by you, but yet I don't have authority over the city manager and he doesn't have authority over me.
I'm not smart, I just read it on the Leesburg, I went and that's the way they have
okay.
their org chart set up, so.
Interesting.
I noticed from when I went to a conference that a lot of cities also have like city manager, city attorney, and city clerk all equal, as in the city clerk doesn't report to the city manager either. I just thought that was interesting.
There are some cities where the city clerk is hired by the council or the commission. I had a city that did that, and the only thing I will say is it's then like the city manager where all the dirty laundry has to get aired in front of the council, and it created difficulties, but that's certainly your pleasure. So if you wanted to change it, that could be added.
and actually, if I can add something, and Ramsey, close your ears. There are some cities that actually have a city police chief and fire chief that are basically reporting to the council. But that's not going to happen here. Sorry, chief.
Okay, moving on.
Change to section 4.02, and it relates to city manager compensation. So it would read, "The compensation of the manager shall be fixed from time to time by the council. it would delete the following language that's currently in the charter, and shall not be reduced during the manager's tenure. So this was to avoid an instance where you wanted to reduce the city manager's compensation and you would be prohibited under the charter from doing so.
Carol?
On that one, I think, I don't see the harm in having that as different things change and like you have things like COVID where your budget is much, much different. Things come up and that should be an option, I think.
Okay, Ms. Fite?
I don't know, I'm reading it, and I'm like, again, with the COVID, I think is a good example. Should we ever need a new city manager? I don't know, would that then put us in a position where somebody's like, well, you're offering me a contract for X, and I get it, well, if I'm not performing and so on, you want to come in and change it, but I don't know that it's, I think, again, not sinking my teeth into it too deeply. I think it's something that we can consider to discuss. I'm going to ask, well, I'll ask the question later, but anyway, so not madly in love with it, but I think a lot of these are still open for discussion. Am I correct? Discuss it later as we move forward with the others.
So why is this actually being changed? It's being changed because what it may have happened in the past, when in fact a city manager gets hired with a contract and with the terms, and it sets forth what his compensation is going to be. It sets forth that he's going to get, an IRA, or he's going to get vacation time. So to take that item out of there, well, that's fine, but the council is going to set the new city manager's contract and the terms. So if we're doing this because of what it may have happened in the past city manager, I think it's probably not something that should be changed, because again, the city manager is by contract. And if this would pass in November, we're not going back and taking whatever Hein gets because it's under contract right now, we'd be under breach of contract. So I think that we need to take into consideration that the five of us doing your due diligence don't agree to something that all five of us, that we can't live with or that our residents can't live with. Because again, it's things that are set by contract you can't change just from a charter amendment. And he would basically be grandfathered in under the existing arrangements anyway.
I think the committee was talking about the grandfather in, but I would say I don't like the word compensation. Salary is one thing, compensation is another. We've added compensation to, without coming before this body and saying, oh, what about the new retirement? What about this and that? That's compensation. Cars and other things, that's compensation. In a downturn in the economy, you don't want to take somebody's salary away, but sometimes you may have to adjust the overall compensation in order to save other people's jobs. So me personally, I think this should be in the policies and procedures. I still haven't found where it was ever voted on on the ballot. I looked at the ballot language from the 2021 or when the last thing when we went to single district vote. I couldn't find it on our archives. That doesn't mean it wasn't there, but in our archives, I couldn't find it. So me personally, I think it also would, I'm a big fan of bonuses. A big fan of this should be the salary and have people earn a level above. That would make that not possible, because I couldn't give somebody a bonus this time and then next time they didn't earn enough and it would fluctuate. So I think it really pigeonholes the council, and I don't think it's a benefit to the individual member. It is a grandfathered thing, though. We talked about that for this time around. But I worry about the word compensation. It's too broad.
So an amendment, you could change that word as well. You could change compensation to salary if that's what the intent of the council is, that you wouldn't reduce the salary. because compensation does mean something different.
Yeah,
So,
well, that would be up to the whole
Alternative.
board, but I think
Yeah.
it should be in policies and procedures on what you do with this stuff, kind of thing.
Mr. Rossi Carver, where in basically taking out those pages that are being up for discussion, but I thought that at the bottom of each page, there was, you know, when something was, or maybe when it
well,
was changed.
your last charter, I'd have to go back and look, but that language is historic language, so it's pre-2004, I know.
What would the ballot question be for that one? Do you
That
have
one?
that?
Yes.
Just curious.
The title would be Compensation of the City Manager, and the question would be, should the charter be amended to delete a provision that prohibits the city council from reducing the city manager's compensation during the manager's tenure as city manager? The next one is, let me make sure I'm in section 4.04, and it's a change to subsection G. And the current language says, submit, this is one of the duties that the city manager has. Submit to the council and make available to the public a complete report on the finances and administrative activities of the city as of the end of each fiscal year. And this would be the added language. In addition to submitting reports to the council quarterly as of the end of each quarter to include financial statements, outstanding debts, current assets, and administrative activities.
So, the first thing that I'm looking at is activities of the city as of the end of each fiscal year. If I was to go around the table and ask each of the council members, what does that mean? I'm going to bet you.
At the end of the fiscal year is?
Yeah, go ahead. When do you think it is?
The last day of September?
You would think. The end of the fiscal year is when the auditors basically come in because it's open until March or April. That's, Chef, I'm just saying that, you know, but that's nonsense. What the biggest thing is addition to submitting reports to the council quarterly as of the end of each quarter to include financial statements, outstanding debts, current assets. We get weekly activity report. Okay? We get a CAFR report at the end of the year. We get war reports. We have requests whenever we want them. We have a major budget amendment coming up at the next meeting. So we got information. We don't have the staff. You basically give us this information that you would want to have some reasonable insurance that it was okay, which would mean an auditor would have to do it. I don't believe that this is a charter. I think it's a policy and procedure, and I think it needs, but I would not be in favor of having to add. How are we going to be able to get that done? If that's something that you all want to put on it, I'm not going to argue. I'm just saying from a realistic perspective, how is it going to get accomplished when we're already sure? Got different things that come up, whether, the water rates, or whether it's Dodge, or whether it's otherwise. I just don't see where we get the extra people. Not that I'm going to fight it. Go right ahead. I'm just putting it out there about the logistics of it.
Okay, Ms. Fike?
Actually, I had kind of the same thought. I would like to know where the burden would be on the departments. We do get the war reports. I'm not going to add back to the list that Mike already did, but it looks like it could be a burden on some already maybe overtaxed departments that we have. So I, again, think it might be something under policies and procedures, not necessarily something for charter.
I do. It ain't always going to be where there's not enough people to handle the task and the responsibilities. It could be, after the Doge analysis, it could be that perhaps we would need to realign some people. I think that we'll have to wait and see about that. We do get war reports, but those are not financial statements. It's the biweekly activities of what's going on. So for the record, I am in favor of this addition, this additional wording.
So I spoke with our city manager about this particular one, and they make monthly reports now. He made it sound like it wasn't a big deal to do quarterly ones, but in the future, as staff turn, that may not always be the case. We may end up with a city manager at some point that doesn't want to be forthcoming with the information and doesn't want to do those monthly reports or give us those war reports. So I think having that language in there ensures that there will at least be quarterly reports no matter what.
Yes, and quarterly financial reports, I'll say my statement, aren't the war reports. We get a declining balance sheet is what we get. We don't get a financial report. For instance, how many of us knew that we were spending the fire truck money out of the reserve fund to cover the budget? We do not have financial reports. I'm very passionate about this because every single week in writing, I've asked for quarterly reports. Every single week. I got one that was 5 months, and I've got 0 since then. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens. I don't feel like I am fulfilling my fiduciary responsibility to the citizens by not knowing what the heck is going on. Declining a checkbook doesn't tell you where you stand from month to month against your budget and against last year's figures. People say, oh, you were trying to run it like a business. I'm not trying. I'm just wanting to know where we stand because guess what? You're not covered. You're not covered. I'm not covered. She isn't covered. She isn't covered if they sue us for not exercising the appropriate financial or fiduciary responsibility. Our insurance isn't going to pick that up. I'm not risking my farm because somebody says they don't have the labor. Let me just tell you about labor. We have what we call a chart of accounts, where we book every expense and we book every piece of revenue. If our computer system is not set up where you can press a button and get those weekly, monthly, and quarterly reports, then we better change the computer system because I can do that with QuickBooks and my farm. And I never worked in a place where I didn't know from week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter what's going on. And it's time that this city quits messing around. We don't need 15 different budget changes a year. We need to get a budget. We need to say, this is the budget. This is what we committed to the public that we were going to do, and this is how we're working against that budget. And I tell you, this is very passionate to me because it's a risk. It's a risk if we continue doing what we're doing.
So can I ask you, if you're that passionate about it, first I'm going to ask you, you might not remember, me and Mike Smith, how we asked for monthly reporting. Do you remember that? Okay. Why didn't it get done? Because the 5 of us did not press the subject, and instead we got a war report. But now let's talk about the data. if I'm at October 1st, now, actually, let me go to November. If I'm in November, November 30th, and we get a financial statement, we're going to get a financial statement that's going to have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax revenue, because we get a lot of our taxes within the first 60 days, 90 days, and if you do it at a discount. So if I get a financial statement in front of you all, and I have a balance sheet, I'm going to have a whole lot of cash. Oh, my God, the city of Groveland is doing great. Now, let's fast forward to the end of September, or even August. Oh, my God, there's no cash coming in. The sky is falling. It's not the case the way that our cash comes in, okay? It comes in and it gets booked when it's available and measurable. So we're going to have, and Chef, I bring this up because if you have an educated population that knows what I'm saying and that they know to look at these cycles, well, that's fine. But to be honest, you're going to have information that's not going to be relevant. It'll be reliable because it will be booked, but it's not going to be relevant by way of trying to make decisions. So let's get a monthly report, and the monthly report should be of literally at the microphone, not a war report, and this is something that we'd asked Joanne to do, and I don't think it was too many years ago. So let's get Joanne to do some sort of a reporting as to exactly where we are on cash. But the other thing you all need to remember, all of our general fund, all of it can be spent anywhere all at once. Just because there's a budget does not mean that we need to stick to that budget. If Mr. Hine and this council decided, you're laughing, Chef, but it's the truth. Okay, and I challenge you to find me different. If this 5-member city council decided all at once to spend $65 million on a new public safety station, we can do it. We're not going to have any money left to do anything else, but we got a fund balanced budget, and it can be moved around wherever it's necessary, providing the city council adopts it. Look it up, folks, when you go home. Fund balanced budget. That's different than impact
I think
fees.
that's part of the quarterly report where you have the budget so you can compare for like the rest of the year. Like, I have multiple jobs. I get paid at the beginning of the month for my job. The end of the month, it's not a desert because you plan it out that way. You know that you're not going to get paid for the next 4 weeks. It's the same thing. So we get all the money up front, that's fine. We have it allocated. We know where it's going. It's not just, you have to tell your money where to go or it just evaporates.
And I'll build on that. I think it's even more important because of the scenario you gave, because you don't want to have that temptation when you have a yearly budget and you have your expenses based on that revenue throughout. I would know exactly if somebody was overspending for this month and it wouldn't be ready for the next month. That's something we don't have now. We don't have the ability to do exactly what you're concerned about right now. As far as the educated public, the public votes for us to be educated and let them know where we stand. They're not going to go look at a balance sheet and figure it out. But if they come up to me and ask me, where did the fire truck money go? I better be able to tell them where it went. And that comes out in the budget. And when we're up or down 5%, a lot of programs automatically flag it. So it's very easy because you're up or down 5%. You can call Mr. Maslow and say, why are we over this month? And he'll say, well, because we took some expense for next month into this month. There's a way to manage the money. And I'm not saying everybody has to do it, but I'm telling you right now, I am not comfortable about the way that we handle money in this city.
Let's get a monthly report that'll be defined by the council under policies and procedures is exactly what we want to see.
That's fine. I asked for a monthly report, and I quit asking for it after the first 6 months because I didn't get it, and went to the quarterly reports, because at least at the quarter I'd find out where it was. So I appreciate that support. And if there's anything I want in this thing, it's this right here. Yes.
May I ask a question? So we're short-staffed and it may be troublesome or difficult to get the report. Is there anyone here that can tell me how many people are in the finance department? Is it 12, 13, 14? How many people are in the finance department?
Last time I checked, it was somewhere between 10 to 12, but we could go back and give you the exact number. I just don't have it on there right now.
Since we rolled in the billing stuff. That's a little north of that.
Utility billing.
So, with respect, Mr. Razik, if you got 10, 12, 14 people in the finance department, perhaps someone could be delegated on a monthly basis, or however you guys want to do it, on a quarterly basis, to produce that finance report.
Need it monthly from the finance director or the budget person.
Well, okay, so maybe some of the things that they're doing while they're preparing that other 12 people can be doing.
I would say, I'm sorry, but I would say it had to come from the manager, the city manager. We can't direct them, but we can authorize, tell the city manager that we got to have it, and the city manager needs to get it to us.
Policies and procedures, you would direct them, yeah.
All right, the next one is a new sentence under 5.02, and the new sentence would read, "The city budget shall include a specific line item to account for depreciation of all depreciable assets according to the cost and life cycle of each item."
Okay. Ms. Fike?
Well, and this has been a lot of discussion in our last budget meetings, and you've asked continually, you asked staff about where's the depreciation, where's the depreciable equipment, and April has said, well, she's explained it, so I'm wondering where this drills that down more, or does it? I mean, she's very clear about we don't fund the depreciation on certain things, so maybe some clarity as to what we're trying to obtain and dig out with this, maybe.
That's it.
Mr. Keo, our general fund budget is based on what we call the modified accrual basis of accounting, which does not include depreciation. Full accrual accounting is reconciled at the end of the year under the consolidated annual financial report. I don't know how or what you would want to accomplish by having, as the city budget, I could sit there and tell you, the budget does have it, but it's at the end of the year during the CAFR. And again, the general fund is not something that typically captures depreciation because it is based on the cash basis of accounting. Depreciation is accrual basis of accounting.
Okay. Ms. Carroll?
Again, I don't know how we know what we have if we don't know how much it's worth. I think that sums it up for me.
I second that.
Concern is, and I know we have what we call sinking funds and all kinds of things. We know a perfect example is the fire trucks, right? That they have a 10-year lifespan and they cost $1 million, $1.2 million, something. I'm not talking about ladder trucks. And so we know that we have to have, you know, at the end of that 10 years, 1.2 million or something on the way to that. Now, even though we depreciate it at that rate, it may end up costing 1.5 or 1.6, but at least you've reserved enough to pay for the portion of that truck. If we don't adopt something like this, in my personal opinion, we're nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. What we're doing is taking the cash from today and paying what's ongoing, and we're moving shell game around, and at some point, we're going to have, land is a limited quantity, is a limited resource, and at some point, you're going to get to the end of that scheme, and there's not going to be any more impact fees coming in for new fire trucks. There's not going to be any of these things then to back pay, and somebody's going to get stuck with a big bill. I think responsibly, we need to, on major equipment, start looking at that sinking fund and how we're going to do it, because we need to have the discussion based on the budget and the monthly sheets that we just talked about on, do we need $60,000 of flowers down the middle of the highway, or do we need to put that in the sinking fund for the next fire truck? Those are decisions that we've got to start making based on the limited amount of resources we have and where we're going to end up if we don't. I'm not going to be around here. My grandkids are, and I don't want them to have that big bill at the end of the day because we're doing this kind of stuff. So do I think we should fund depreciation? Yes. Do we need to word it in a way that is in city government? Yes. Does other cities do it? Matter of fact, it came up today at the county meeting, and yes, other cities fund it. So,
What would the specific question be for that one?
Thanks, Amy Jo.
Be amended, should the charter be amended to require the city budget include a specific line item to account for the depreciation of all equipment according to the cost and life system of each item? I think it should be life cycle of each item. Yes.
Mayor, is, again, we keep talking about if something is policy and procedure, is this a more equipped to be part of the charter, or do we push it, not push it, but do we make it a policy and procedure? Because I think some of the things we're looking at tend to have kind of that administrative overview. Would that be something that should be in that realm as opposed to a charter amendment?
I think that's a discussion that's going to come up here in just a second as we now go down the priorities and then what we want to move for this time and then bring back next time. I'd like to have the discussion not just be, this is going to the policy procedures, but I'd like to have the recommendation this goes on the next ballot so we don't lose it in the atmosphere out there, stratosphere, you know.
There's one more. The next one is a new paragraph to section 5.02 budget, and it would read, "The city shall endeavor to adopt a structurally balanced budget. Generally, this means that reoccurring expenditures should be covered by reoccurring revenues, and that non-reoccurring revenues should be used to fund non-reoccurring expenditures. The Finance Department shall incorporate information into its budget presentation demonstrating the city's progress in achieving a structurally balanced budget."
Mr. Redzik.
Should I even bother? I mean, seriously, because unless you understand our budget, asking for a structurally balanced budget is not really the question or what's really happening, because a structurally balanced budget this year is going to mean a 5.8 millage rate, because a structurally balanced budget means I need as much revenues to cover my expenses, and I don't dip in to whatever money I've got left over from last year. Okay? Now, we will always have money left over from last year. And that money is typically used and carried forward to make sure that my millage rate next year stays at a manageable rate. And we've all seen Mr. Hines' board. We've all seen it. And that board basically is suggesting that in order to do a structurally balanced budget, again, where my revenues take care of my expenses in the current year, and I don't care about anything that's been not used in the previous year, it's going to require a millage rate increase. And anyone wants to quote me on it, fine. Okay? I'll even smile for you, Jen. Okay? 5.7 or 5.8 is what a structurally balanced budget is going to be. But that is why we have whatever's left over at the end of this year. Because remember, we got a fund balance budget. Anything that's collected more or we didn't spend as much, that excess gets rolled over to the next year, which then goes towards bringing my next year's balance, my next year's budget within line of a 5.5 or otherwise. That's, and you've all seen it. I'm not making it up.
Ms. White?
I'll just rest on Mike's comments. I got nothing on that.
Joe?
Do you have the actual question for that one?
The title would be Structurally Balanced Budget, and the question would be, should the charter be amended to require the city to strive to adopt a budget whereby reoccurring expenditures are paid using reoccurring revenues and non-reoccurring revenues are used to fund non-reoccurring expenditures?
So I love the idea of a structurally balanced budget. I think it's fiscally responsible. It absolutely would mean a tax increase. That's the only concern I have, and I don't think it's going to happen again, but just in case, is if there's a clause for an emergency, such as a COVID year where we're getting a ton of money from a federal government to essentially prop us up because nothing's happening. Because I think that was almost unprecedented. Could it happen again? Absolutely. So I think with some sort of clause on that would be important. So.
Madam Vice President, Vice Mayor?
Mike, we can all agree to disagree, okay? And for you to ask, would it make any difference what you're saying? Absolutely. We may not always agree. Your way to getting to Kroger's may be 27. My way of getting to Kroger's may be by helicopter or Route 50.
Get it delivered. I don't go up that way.
Oh. Well, should you ever have it where you would need to go. So let us respectfully agree to disagree. And we value what you're saying. We know that when it comes to this, you are the subject matter expert, if you will. But that doesn't mean that anything that we add value or the perception of doesn't make it wrong. Okay, so let's do that. It would be like me poo-pooing you for maybe less knowledge that you would have about a contract, procurement contract. Whereas, you know, that's more my strength. Accounting is more your strength. But please, let's agree to disagree in a respectful manner.
Appreciate your comments.
Okay. Well, as you know, I'm for the structured budget. I'm having a little confusion because what we're saying now is we're taking money left from last year and rolling it into this year, and then we won't have a structured budget, but right now we can take it out of last year as well. I would first ask if I had a financial report, what didn't we spend it on, and is there something that's rolling forward on the expense we should be taking? Secondly, I don't want to sit here as a council member anymore at the end of the budget meeting and see a slide that comes up that says, this is a structurally non-balanced budget, therefore it doesn't cover sidewalks, roads, and there's a whole list of basic necessities that is on that last slide. Look at it on your thing, it's still there, of all these basic waste, stormwater, all the things that we continually talk about isn't covered. So I would say there's two ways to structurally balance a budget. One is to, fudge it here and there. The other is to cut expense. You cut expense and you have your expenses match your income. That's what the budget does. If you end up with too much, well, guess what? We just talked about a reserve or a depreciation fund, but we got to get disciplined here. We keep spending money on stuff and passing debt forward. We've got to get back to some financial discipline, and I think endeavoring to do that. That means our heart and soul is going to endeavor to do it. It doesn't say that every time it would happen, but boy, if it doesn't, then we're accountable to everybody out there if it doesn't, because in our charter it says we need to endeavor to have a balanced, structurally balanced budget.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Hallmark of accounting is the conservatism principle. I'm going to answer your question as to why money is over, and I'm going to explain it. Basically, when we budget, and you've heard it from our staff, we always budget our revenues on the low side, and we always budget our expenses on the high side. That way, we're not basically going to get caught in a bind. So what happens is, and I'm going to use Chief Ramsey. Chief Ramsey had Commander Curtis, who left mid-year. That money hasn't been used. So his budget is going to have a surplus for that cop. Or maybe he had someone who didn't, he had so many cops that he could have filled and he didn't. So he's going to have, he wanted to, it's on the org chart and we funded it. But that money wasn't used, so it's going to be rolled over into the general fund. Conversely, our expenses, and then we got revenues like this discretionary sales tax that is given to us from the state. It's not something we have any control over. And we've got some of the other taxes that we don't necessarily have a complete control over because it's based on usage or otherwise. Then I got expenses. Again, expenses are typically always budgeted higher. So then again, we know that we've got it, but they come in lower. Now I got more money. So it's not anything being nefarious. It is the hallmark of accounting, which is the conservatism principle. That is why you've got money that's left over. Now, again, go to your war report, and it should give you exactly where we are by department, by way of budgeting and what's been spent. And then you can ask your questions. Ramsey, how come you got so much extra money? He's going to turn around, he's going to tell you, because that's just a little bit of information as to how we have excess money left over.
Okay, and we are on separate pages. I believe in budget discipline, and I believe if you're fudging too much and sandbagging too much, it's just as bad as bringing it in too low, because you're not being effective in using the money that you have effectively. As a matter of fact, you can look all across the business world and stock market if you want to compare that. If you consistently are sandbagging, your stock goes down, doesn't go up. So conservatism is a way to say, okay, we want to fudge it a little bit. I think disciplined budgeting is the key to where we want to go moving forward. So we're going to respectively, as my teammate here said, agree to disagree. Yes.
So along those lines, things like Major Curtis leaving, that would unforeseen and, unpredicted. So then we take that money and put it in our much needed infrastructure the next year. That's a project it can go towards. That's not a reoccurring expense. At this point, that might be a better choice.
Should have a sinking fund. And I'll throw this out at you, Chef. If we have more than X in fund balance reserve at the end of the year, is it something that we want to take that excess? Mind you, you're going to go to a structurally balanced budget, which is going to mean you're going to increase your millage rate. But if you want to take X amount of dollars that's left over and you want to put it into a sinking fund, there's an idea. But we are taking away the flexibility of keeping the millage rate at a lower level if we do that.
Doing it this way, that's what our residents are telling us they want. So I think if we're going to do it, this is the right way to do it, because that's what they're telling us they want.
I'm not voting for a tax increase.
And many people might not.
But I would say a good budget, sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down on your budget, but that's management. You adjust to those ups and downs. I know somebody over here that's in the food service business, and you know how you have to react up and down with controllable expenses. I don't want to, I personally don't think it's good business practice to have so much padding that you don't know where things are going, and you end up getting a budget adjustment every quarter. It's better to make those adjustments on controllable expenses up and down. That's good business practices, and I think that's what everybody in business does. So maybe it doesn't apply to cities, but maybe it should. So I will say that I'm for a structurally balanced budget.
Mayor, if I might, Anita, could you read again how that's going, the language that would be on the ballot again? I heard it, but now we've gotten a little beyond it. I'd like to hear it again.
The title would be Structurally Balanced Budget. The question would be, should the charter be amended to require the city to strive to adopt a budget whereby recurring expenditures are paid using recurring revenues and non-recurring revenues are used to fund non-recurring expenditures?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that now we can go back, now that we all understand everything. If you agree, then we can go back to page 2 of your document, and that's where everything was ranked. Okay. I've been requested, let's take a 10-minute recess. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. And we're on page 2 of the report where we have the rankings of the asks for the charter. And so the best way to discuss this would be to start at the top and say,
You want to take from the top ranked from the committee?
right,
So the first ranking was the term limits with 4-year terms of office.
what is rank tally? It says 7 there. What does that mean?
So they were given a certain number to apply to each, and so you really can ignore the ranking tally, but they ranked number 1. I mean, that was the first in the ranking.
Okay.
But there's a big number gap between the first ranked and the second ranked because the committee had different priorities after the first.
Anita, let me ask you something. Would it be better for us to go down and just say 1, 2, 3, 4? Which ones do we think should be in policies and procedures first? And then we can eliminate those and then go back and discuss the ones that are left. Is that agreeable to everybody? Okay. Number 1, should that be in a charter or a policies and procedure?
That would have to be in a charter,
Okay.
yeah.
Number 2, budget, structurally balanced budget. That,
I believe that should be in the charter, because like I said before, I believe that's in the hands of the people at that point, so.
Madam Vice President, Vice Mayor, I'm sorry.
I think it should be in the charter.
Mr. Radzik?
Policies and procedures.
Okay.
I'm going to go with policies and procedures on that. I'm worried that if we go into the structured balanced budget, the way that it's worded on the ballot may not allow folks to realize it could lead to a tax increase, millage rate, and so on. So I'm kind of, iffy on that, but for right now, and it doesn't mean we can't go around again and rank them again maybe, but right now I'd like to put that in policies and procedures because I hate to see our citizens levied another tax increase if the millage rate would have to go up to have a structurally balanced budget.
Okay, thank you. And I would. Keeping 3, 2, we'll go down and see which ones are.
That's,
okay.
I'm good.
Vacancies, forfeiture of office, filling of vacancies. We went through that. That was the expiration of term thing. It goes on to the next. That would have to be in the charter, right?
That would have to be a charter amendment.
Okay, authority and duties of the city manager. Ms. Fike?
Back through my notes. I wasn't sure which way we went on that. We're talking about doing the quarterly reports. You want monthly reports, my understanding. Can we tighten that down and make it a policy and procedure by a vote of the council if we put it on the agenda? Can we then do that way rather than that has to be voted on, that we require the monthly reports that you want, or quarterly, whichever one you want to go with. I mean, if we put it on the agenda, I think that we can probably move that off that way. Is that?
Yeah, I think most of these can probably be done by a vote as a resolution, but if it's in the charter, the only way that it can be changed is if we go back before the voters where anybody can come along and, the next 4 or next 5 council members could vote to take that off. It's how important is it to the voters to have that voice, I think is the way I look at it anyway. So are you on policies and procedure or charter?
If we're going to go around for a second vote on it, I'm going to put that in the parking lot with policies and procedures right now, but I'm not married to that.
Policies and procedures, but more stringent than quarterly.
Thank you. Amy Jo?
think that one could be an ordinance, so maybe policies and procedures, just because I feel like there's a lot on here that really needs to go to the charter, and I don't want to put 11 things on the charter.
Okay.
So I feel like something's got to go to policies and procedures.
Madam Vice President?
I
Vice Mayor?
think that it should go in policies.
Okay, and I'm going to vote that it goes into charter. Okay, procedure, citizen authority to require reconsideration of certain ordinances and resolutions.
Charter.
Charter.
Mr. Rezek?
It's definitely a charter, but I don't like the way that it's written. I think it needs to be, again, tied down to 90 days after passage, or like you had mentioned. Charter, but with more bite to it.
Adjustments, okay. Ms. Fike?
I agree, charter's fine, but we really do need to tighten the language up on it.
Okay, and I vote charter as well. Appointment, removal, compensation. Compensation of the city manager. Ms. Fike?
I could see where we'll put it in the charter. Again, I think that you had a good point when you didn't like the word compensation. I think we need to tighten some language up on that and relook at it. You were saying salary versus compensation. So as written, probably not, but as long as we can tighten up the language.
This is one that would have to be a charter amendment because it's deleting language that's in the charter.
It's deleting this whole thing, right?
But if you wanted to amend it, we could change
Yeah.
compensation if that's the direction.
Okay, thank you.
So refresh my memory, which side?
Oh, charter, but with the tighter language, because I know that you didn't like the comp word versus salary.
It's a charter amendment, but again, everyone needs to understand that that appointment and that compensation or the salary or the benefits is usually contractual, so I think we all need to be careful when we go to hire a new person.
Okay. Which one? Charter? Vice President? Vice Mayor? I don't know why I keep doing that. Veronia.
Are we in section 402, 4.02?
4.02.
Charter.
Charter?
I think that one has to be the charter because it's removing language that is presently in the charter, so there's no policy or procedure that could possibly override that.
Yeah, and I vote for charter as well. Procedure, restriction of contracting between election and investiture of newly elected council members. When in between election, when you're voted in, and then when you are sworn in.
But it says newly elected.
Investiture of the newly elected council.
I mean, yeah, you're not sworn in every year, right? Every year? No, only when you're, yeah. Only when you're voted in. Okay, so let me go, Mr. Radzik.
That's a
Okay, Ms. Fike,
Agree, charter.
Vice Mayor,
Charter.
Charter.
okay. Citizen involvement, citizen involvement. That's what the first one. Amy Jo?
Charter.
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 Okay, procedure, restriction on the timing of contract renewals. Ms. Fike?
So just, again, and Mayor, you brought it up that I know that some of the contracts are, we're all aware that some have had like this ongoing perpetual renewal. I just would like to have some, I don't know if it's a fluid language or some way that we don't put a 6-month mark on it, because I don't want to cut our nose off to spite our face on a contract renewal that might take us longer than 6 months. Because some of these are huge renewals and are going to take a little bit longer, maybe on an RFP or something like that. If we can tighten up or find maybe it's language that says not between this amount of time and that amount of time, then I don't have an issue with it, but I think we have to be a little bit more judicious with that 6 months.
Okay, which side? PMP or the other, or none?
I mean, it could easily be in policies and procedures, and if it's something that comes up to the council on an agenda, then we can tighten it up. If we put it on the charter, again, do we screw our feet to the floor that we can never have the change? If it's in P and P, we might have some more flexibility down the road, but I think we can if we put something in place with it, it can always come back to the council to make that change again. So maybe I will say P and P for that point.
Okay, Mr. Redzick?
So, for the record, I would say P and P. However, I don't like the actual restriction on the timing of contract renewals. I'd much rather see the contract renewals of all of our contractors every 2 years. So I'm saying P and P, but I don't like the.
Okay.
I'd say charter for that one.
I say policy. Policy.
Say policy as well. Okay, budget, depreciation of depreciable assets. Charter or P and P? Amy Jo?
This one, I feel like could go in policies and procedures, but I feel like it's been asked for, so let's just go put it in the charter if people approve it.
Charter.
Policies and procedures with our financial auditors giving us the information that we need.
And I kind of lend that way as well. I go back to, there's things that we can bring or can be put on the agenda before the council, and that gives us the opportunity to adjust it as it goes along. And yes, Amy Jo, I agree that people are saying, oh, we need this, but we can give it in a little less permanent format if we have it in policies and procedures. Not that I'm saying that we're going to get rid of it, but I think it gives us the opportunity to massage it as we go along.
Okay. And I put it in the charter. City attorney, appointment of city attorney by the city council. Mike?
That has to be a charter.
Ms. Fike?
Okay, charter's fine.
Vice Mayor?
Charter.
Amy Jo?
I'm shocked it's not already in the charter.
Charter as well. I didn't get a P and P or on the first one. We just kind of skimmed over election and term limits on 4-year terms of office for, is that everybody that has to be chartered, right?
That has to be chartered.
Right. Okay. So we have, these are the unanimous items. Number 3.07, procedure, citizens' authority to require reconsideration. Section 4.02, appointment and removal of compensation. 3.07, procedure restricting contracting between election and investiture of newly elected. And then citizen involvement. It was all, and then all the way down to the bottom is appointment of city attorney and city council members. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 items that were unanimous.
Mayor, I'm missing one. Could you go back and just reading down from 1 down? I have 5, 6, 7, and 8 is unanimous, and 11. Which one am I missing, please?
We had number 1,
Thank
ranking 3.03.
Thank you.
Is
Thank you.
one. Then I had procedure 3.07. We had section 4.02, appointment. We had 3.07, procedure. We had 1.02, citizen involvement. And then 3.10, city attorney. 6. So we have 6 unanimous. So can we go back and just look at which one of these? I mean, you know, I've got to tell you, I'm torn here. I'm really torn about how many we have to put on the ballot, because I remember in 2001, when the single district vote got voted down and wasn't on the ballot in the first round. And then because we took off the term, Mr. Randolph Waite put the term, the city single district vote back on the second reading, and then it took 75% of the vote of the, so it was something that the people wanted that almost didn't get on there. I'm almost thinking that maybe we should put all 6 on. Let the public decide.
So, Mr. Mayor,
I think the order of which they're going to be on there is very important, though.
I wasn't going to have a problem with 1, but as nicely as possible, you pushed for single-member voting districts because you did not want one area carrying a vote. True, this is going to go out for everyone to vote on, but Trilogy is going to have no less than 1,700 votes and will effectively carry or defeat any one of these. Okay? Now, with that said, 6 on here at once? I can't. First one, election in terms, yes. Next year, you've got a House next year, Senate. And my point is that we're going to have 3 seats up for election, and we're going to have county, federal government, otherwise, and you're going to have a lot more people that are potentially going to go to the ballot. So that's where my head is at. I don't necessarily, and again, I am being extremely respectful when I say you were the one that really didn't want one particular group. Exactly what we're going to do is to let one group carry the vote. That is transparent or representative of this.
Thank you. Amy Jo, do you have a comment?
I'm in favor of putting all 6 on there. I know it's a lot of reading for people. Sometimes they're complicated, but in my experience, the people who care will take the time to research them before they ever get to the ballot box, and they'll know which way they're going to vote, and it'll still go pretty quickly. And 3 of them, I kind of feel like are almost procedural. So you've got like the appointment of city attorney. Like I said, I'm surprised that's not in there. I don't see that being a huge deal. Adding citizen involvement, I feel like it's important to have it in there, but I don't feel like it's controversial in any way. And then I think people will absolutely be in favor of removing that clause from the appointment, removal, and compensation of city manager. So I think 3 of them are going to go quickly. It's the other 3, it's kind of which way will they go? Do those have to pass with 50% or is it 60%?
50.
50, okay.
Well, yeah, more than 50, just
More than-
one
well,
vote
right,
more than,
right.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
majority.
Yeah, majority.
Ms. Fike?
I don't have an issue with all 6 of them. Again, I think we were talking on 5 and 6, maybe tightening up the language to make sure it was what we'd chatted about earlier. So if we can make sure we get that, we can get that done.
Yeah, my other comment was, a lot of work went into this, and the committee deserves a lot of kudos. It was, but
Vice Mayor?
I'm fine with all 6. 3 of them are easy reads, easy to understand. but us as council members, in these meet and greets or whatever you want to call them, we're going to have to do a lot of education to our constituents.
And I'll add my 2 cents. I think the 6, let the public decide. I'm not a big, I don't have a big concern about Trilogy or anybody else. I think that we have a county charter election coming up that's going to drive a lot of people. And you know what? I've heard us make decisions, said with public input, with 13 people coming to an open house and saying that's what it is. So I think this is going to be a good representation of the city. And so I would ask for a consensus for our city attorney to take those 6 items back and take the notes that we've done on verbiage, or if we have to go back through that again, we can do that right now on verbiage changes, because there were some changes on some things. But and then I'll take a second consensus vote after that on moving these others to a discussion for us to get it into resolution form.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is if we can make sure we follow up on the other ones and they don't just disappear into the abyss.
Yes, yep.
The change you want is, and then before you take a vote on that, if you would open it up to public comment. So I have 3.03, 3.07 which is number 5 in the ranking,
Correct.
4.02, which is number 6 in the ranking, 3.07, which is 7 in the ranking, 1.02, which is 8 in the ranking, and then 3.10, which is 11 in the ranking. And as I understand it, for the citizen authority to require reconsideration, you want them to do that within 90 days of the vote. And then for the compensation one, you want to change compensation to salary? No. Okay, that's where I need clarification.
Yeah, I
then.
think it just goes and we bring that back under policies and procedures. I think that's just gone. Right?
Yeah, I think taking that off, and that was the weird, that was just the discussion we were having, was the difference between salary we can't really touch, but compensation we should be able to adjust. So taking that off does that.
Okay, well, because it currently reads compensation.
What's coming off?
No. Well, it's saying you can't reduce compensation.
Right.
Okay.
And we're removing that language
Okay, so
entirely,
that one
right?
can be just as it was presented. Okay. Were there any other changes that you wanted,
I
other
think-
than that addition of the 90 days? I just want to make sure I don't miss something.
Help me out, Ms. Fike. I think we had notes on
No,
several.
those were the 2 I was talking about that
for
we
tonight.
had some, a little bit more in-depth discussion on. So 5 and 6 was, again, taking out where it says the compensation of the city manager, because I think the language was,
But that's what it's doing, is removing that language
Right.
from the charter.
right, but we had gone back and forth talking about salary versus compensation, and maybe
Right.
got a little, muddled in the discussion. So, thank you, Amy Jo.
All right, then I think you have it. Now we'll open it for public comment. Do we have public comment sheets?
Yes, Matthew Bauman.
Matthew Bauman, 1122 Imperial Eagle Street, Groveland, Florida, 34736. Honorable Mayor, Council. I did not get a chance to attend the committee meetings, as that was kind of during my busiest time of year, and I was working very late. So in general, I'm just going to go down the list. I'm not particularly in favor of 4-year terms. I think the council has worked hard to try and be accountable to the public, and I think 2 years helps them stay accountable to the public. I understand there's additional costs running elections, but you have an org chart where the people are first, and if they're first, then they should be heard from more frequently, my opinion. Term limits, I don't know. I can see the benefit of them. I can see the cons to them. If you have a good council that has experience and then they run out of term, you might lose valuable membership after a certain amount of time. I don't know what the time limit should be. I have a concern about the citizens being able to force the council to reconsider and then if the council fails to repeal what they've been forced to reconsider, that it goes on to a general election to be put to the people. My primary concern in listening to this is, especially with resolutions that adopt contracts, is can it force the city into a position where it becomes in breach of contract, in which case it could cost the city substantial amounts of money if it's large developments or things of that nature. Also, the word's thrown around a lot, especially in the preamble or the new section that is being up for consideration about us being a democracy, but we're not, we're a republic. And our Constitution, both federal and state, guarantee us a republic form of government. The people elect our leaders to run the government, and I feel that is very much for a reason that Councilmember Carroll alluded to earlier, in that it takes time to learn how to govern. It takes time to learn how things work, and I'm a big fan of education. I think everybody should be educated and be invested and show up to all the meetings and learn how everything works, but I don't think it's reasonable to expect that you're going to be able to educate the public at large to any length of detail where they can make a confident, well-informed, studious decision on what's put before them, even at the general election. So I'm strongly against that particular amendment. All of the budget items I strongly feel should be in policy and procedure. I think if people have made requests and they've not get them, maybe they're making them individually instead of as the board, in which case, if it's made as the board, staff has to respond. If you're making it as an individual, having served in the position, you're really no better than me standing out here. Unless you have the weight of the council with you, staff is not obligated to respond to you. I've had similar situations in the past. So I would say the budget should be flexible. And speaking as a resident and a business owner, I'm not in favor of the structural balanced budget, especially if it enforces a larger tax rate, because taxes are already pretty high. So unless the governor magically makes them disappear, I'm not looking to raise them anytime soon. Thank you.
Comment. So if we can have did we did the consensus yet? No.
So we just need a motion where consensus is fine, either way.
Can we make a motion? This is a special meeting.
It's a special
we
meeting, so
make
you
a
can take
motion.
a motion in a second and vote.
Can I have a motion to accept the 6 items identified, to have our attorney to go and
That's a lot of words. I make a motion to accept these 6 agenda items, or these 6 items to go on the ballot for our charter.
A second.
Okay, further discussion?
No.
Roll call.
Councilmember Carroll, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gaines? Councilmember Fike?
Aye.
Councilmember Radzik? Mayor Kehoe?
Aye. Now, can we have another motion to take the items that aren't, the other 5 items, and roll them over to come back in the form of a resolution for us to talk about as another agenda item in the future meeting?
I make a motion to have the other 5 items turned into either resolutions or ordinances for us to discuss in the future.
Second.
You have a second?
Councilmember Fike, Councilmember Carroll. Councilmember Fike?
Hold it, excuse me, we have somebody that wanted to make a comment.
Stays. General, with regards to the other 6, need some timelines to be put onto it, otherwise it's not going to get done in the near future. So I would ask that a motion be redone and basically have either 2 per month or whatever the case may be. But nail it down, Chef, nail it down.
You had an opportunity to make that motion. Would you like to rescind your motion and have Mr. Radzik, or?
Just easily do it if she agrees.
I think we can talk about it. It's okay. I don't think it's going to get drug out forever.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but
We're in the middle of a budget season as well, that's why I say, I mean.
I know, I think it's going to have to be after budget season is what I was thinking anyway, because I think we're going to have to finish that first and then move to the next item.
Okay, so we have a,
Can I amend my motion? That all of these be brought back to us by the end of September.
Yeah, I second. Or,
oh, did you second?
Somebody seconded.
I'm sorry.
Okay, amended motion. Councilmember Carroll, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Fike? Councilmember Radzik?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gaines? Mayor Kehoe?
Aye. So with that, do we have any further public comment on the evening? Well, with no further public comment, let's adjourn the meeting. Thank you.